This time we will look at the average egogram of people with high NP. Here, a high NP score means that the person's NP score is within the top 10% among all test participants. The total number of participants is 8,255. Among them, 953 people are in this group, and the ratio is 11.6%. The standard is the top 10% in NP. When we look at the average scores of their 6 ego states, CP is 33.6, NP is 43.7, A is 32.3, FC is 33.3, AC is 37.3, and SC is 30.6. Compared with the overall average, NP is 9.8 points higher than the overall average of 33.9. So the first thing that stands out in this table is, of course, NP. The next thing we can see is AC. AC is 37.3, which is 3.0 points higher than the overall average. However, there is also a gap between NP and AC. NP is 43.7 and AC is 37.3. There is a gap of more than about 6 points between these two ego states. Because of this, this group can be seen as a structure where NP leads almost most scenes, while AC sometimes follows in a supporting way. When we look at people with high NP, the first point to remember is this. These are people who first look at the temperature of the relationship. NP is the force that takes care of care, protection, consideration, attentive support, and emotional cushioning inside the mind. So when NP is high, these questions are likely to come up first when the person looks at a scene. Is the other person all right? Is anyone uncomfortable? Should I take care of this a little? Can I make this atmosphere softer? These people may quickly notice changes in the other person's facial expression or in the atmosphere. They may also try to detect discomfort that has not been spoken. A flow that cushions the situation before conflict grows may also appear. Because of this, in ordinary relationships, they are often seen as warm people, people who take care of others, people who feel comfortable to be around, and people who make the atmosphere softer. However, it is not enough to see this structure simply as a good person. In this group, NP stands overwhelmingly at the front. In most relationship scenes, what is seen first is care and consideration. Because AC is also higher than the average, the way of adjusting that care to the other person, and the atmosphere may sometimes appear together. Even when these people want to help, they may check whether the other person feels burdened. In conflict scenes, rather than colliding directly, they may try to lower the atmosphere and keep the relationship moving softly. However, the other 4 ego states are difficult to see clearly in ordinary relationships. CP is slightly higher than the average, but compared with NP, it is far behind. So setting strong standards or drawing a firm line may not be seen often in everyday situations. Air is also slightly higher than the average, but the gap from NP is large. So it is not that they cannot judge. Rather, judgment has difficulty standing before care. Instead of separating the situation coldly, they may first move toward reducing the other person's discomfort. FC is also not lower than the average. However, because NP is too far at the front, warm response and attentive support are more likely to be seen before free enjoyment or playfulness. In particular, SC needs to be seen carefully. SC is 30.6, which is almost similar to the overall average. However, there is a large gap from NP at 43.7. Because of this, in this group, personal color or personal needs are difficult to show in ordinary relationships. What does the other person need right now? May come up before, I want to do it this way. In this structure, care can become a path for confirming one's own value. In the process of taking care of someone, reducing discomfort and making the relationship softer, the person can gain the feeling, I am a needed person. This is not a bad thing. Everyone confirms their own value inside relationships. However, when NP stands too far at the front, The person's value can become too strongly tied to myself as someone who is helpful. When the person can give help, they may feel stable. But when the other person does not want help, or when the person can no longer take care of the other person, emptiness or disappointment may appear. Because of this, these sides may appear in close relationships. A side that always looks fine on the outside, but has fatigue accumulating inside. A side that takes good care of the other person, but speaks about its own needs late. A side that makes the atmosphere softer, but does not show its own discomfort clearly. A side that is pushed back little by little while the other person becomes comfortable. The important questions in this group are these. Am I helping the other person right now? Or am I confirming my value through helping? Is this care something I chose? Or did it come out automatically? Am I crossing my limit while trying to reduce the other person's discomfort? These questions are not for stopping care. They are for checking whether I am disappearing inside care. The tuning needed for a person with high NP is not to reduce warmth. Warmth is their great force. It is an important energy that keeps relationships alive, stabilizes people, and softens rough atmospheres. However, before care comes out too automatically, it is necessary to check one's own state once. To summarize, people with high NP are not simply good people. They are people who first detect the temperature of the relationship and the other person's discomfort. And AC can sometimes support that care by adjusting it to the other person and the atmosphere. However, because NP stands so far at the front, CP, A, FC, and SC may not be clearly seen in ordinary relationships. In particular, the absolute score of SC is also close to the average level. So personal needs and personal color are difficult to show clearly. So when we understand these people, it is better to look at them this way. We should look not at what is lacking, but at what they are taking care of too early. A person with high NP may show the energy of care not only in words, but also in the body. However, non-verbal expressions are not a judgment table. We cannot look at one body gesture and say, this person has high NP. Non-verbal expressions are only reference material. When facial expression, posture, gaze, tone of voice, and distance repeatedly show the same direction, we can carefully estimate which ego state is standing at the front inside that person. A flow that can often be seen in a person with high NP is a direction in which the body first tries to make the other person comfortable. The posture may be soft. Rather than fixing the body firmly, the person may lean slightly toward the other person. The person may try to sit at the same height as the other person, or may come closer at a distance that is not burdensome. This kind of posture can give the feeling that it is all right here. The facial expression may respond relatively quickly. When the other person speaks, the person may nod or respond together with the face. A smile may appear naturally, and the facial expression may move together according to the other person's emotion. This expression can give the other person the feeling, this person is listening to me. The gaze may stay in a receiving direction rather than a checking direction. Rather than looking as if pushing the other person, it may become a gaze that waits so the other person can speak. Hand gestures may continue softly. The palms may be open, or the hand movements may move as if wrapping around rather than being cut short. Depending on the situation, the person may take care of objects or move first so that the other person is not uncomfortable. The tone of voice may be soft and checking. Are you all right? That must have been very hard. You can speak slowly. Would you like me to help? These words may come out naturally. The speed of speech may also adjust to the other person. If the other person speaks slowly, the person may wait. If the other person is having a hard time, the person may try to receive them first rather than immediately give a solution. Care may also appear in the way the person uses space. In a meeting or gathering, the person may be in a place that supports from the side rather than taking the center. If someone looks excluded or uncomfortable, the person's gaze or body may go toward that person first. This is not because the person has weak presence. It may be a way of placing the relationship's safety net first. However, these nonverbal expressions also need to be read carefully. A soft smile is not always because of NP. Nodding may be a habit. Coming closer can also have a different meaning depending on the situation. So nonverbal expressions must always be seen together with context and repetition. To summarize, the nonverbal expressions of NP are not simple kindness. They are closer to a direction where the body first creates a sense of safety, so the other person does not feel anxious. Even if the person feels that they simply acted as usual, the other person may receive the feeling, I can relax a little in front of this person. However, if this force is used too automatically, the person's own fatigue and limits may be pushed behind. So a helpful question for a person with high NNP is this: am I caring right now, or am I pushing myself behind? Now for comparison, let's also look at the average of people with low NP. Here, a low NP score means that the person's NP score is within the bottom 10% among all test participants. The total number of participants is 8,255. The number in this group is 1,021, and the ratio is 12.4%. The standard is the bottom 10% in NP. When we look at the average scores of their 6 ego states, CP is 30.3, NP is 24.1, A is 28.9, FC is 29.5, AC is 31.2, and SC is 30.6. Compared with the overall average, NP is 9.8 points lower than the overall average of 33.9. This group is a group of people with low NP. However, looking only at low NP is not enough. The more important feature in this group is that the other 5 ego states are gathered at similar heights. CP, A, FC, AC, and SC are all gathered between the 28-point range and the 31-point range. The gap between the highest AC at 31.2 and the lowest A at 28.9 is also not large. Because of this, it is difficult to say that one specific ego state leads the scene steadily. In some scenes, the person may speak standards like CP. In some scenes, the person may step back like AC. In some scenes, the person may show their own way like SC. In some scenes, the person may respond lightly like FC. In other scenes, the person may keep distance and judge like A. In other words, in the group with low NP, the force that warmly wraps around others does not come forward easily, but one specific ego state does not clearly take that empty place instead. Because of this, people around them may feel that this person is a little difficult to predict. Becoming close also means becoming somewhat predictable. When we gradually come to know what kind of facial expression and tone of voice the other person will show in certain scenes, we move closer to that person. However, when NP is low, the basic temperature of the relationship may feel low. If the other 5 ego states are also placed at similar heights, it becomes difficult to predict which ego state will come forward in each scene. Because of this, this group may be seen by people around them not as bad people, but as people who need time before becoming close. The other person may feel this way. I do not think this person dislikes me, but I do not know how to approach them. It is difficult to predict what kind of response will come out. It takes time until I feel that we have become close. However, the scores of these 5 ego states are not clearly higher than the average. Most of them are at the average level or lower than the average. Because of this difficulty of prediction is not likely to be felt as strong pressure or threat. In ordinary relationships, it can appear as a degree of change that can be handled. If this structure had appeared at a score or range much higher than the average, people around the person could have felt greater tension. This is because when several ego states come out strongly by turns, the other person finds it difficult to predict the response and may feel burdened by coming closer. However, in this group, the scores themselves are not high. So the difficulty of prediction is more likely to appear as distance or delayed closeness than as strong discomfort. It is better to read the nonverbal expressions not simply as there is no warmth, but as difficulty in keeping the temperature and direction of response steady. Facial responses may not be large. Rather than immediately moving together with the other person's emotion, the person may respond a little late. At times, the person may pass something over plainly. At other times, the person may suddenly speak standards. At other times, the person may step back. The tone of voice may also change depending on the situation. In some scenes, the person may speak shortly and plainly. In some scenes, the person may speak somewhat firmly. In other scenes, the person may simply pass something over or reduce the response. Because of this, the other person may find it difficult to read this person's inner mind. The tuning point is not to force oneself to become an affectionate person. It is to show small warmth steadily. I see. That must have been very hard. It is difficult for me to solve it right away, but I am listening. If needed, I can organize it together with you. These short sentences do not require great care. They simply help the other person feel this person is not pushing me away. To summarize, in people with low NP, warm care does not come forward easily, and the other 5 ego states may appear by turns depending on the situation from similar heights. Because of this, people around them may feel that this person is a little difficult to predict. However, because those scores are at the average level or lower than the average, in ordinary relationships, this is likely to appear at a level that can be handled. The core point is not cold. It is that closeness may take time to build, because relationship temperature signals do not come out steadily.